Coinbase just made a major announcement that, in my opinion, basically killed a very big crypto project. I'll get into that in just a moment. We're also going to talk about OpenAI and artificial intelligence in relation to crypto and the potential risk for the crypto space. We'll talk about World Liberty Financial. I'll tell you about Ether.fi. We'll cover Bitcoin, Uniswap, and a lot more news. Hello everyone, and welcome to CryptoRed, the crypto news channel. Let's start with the market. Bitcoin is down, Ethereum is down, XRP is down, the whole market is down today. You know what? Let's jump right now into the news. Let's talk about World Liberty Financial. The project has seen an 18% increase over the last 24 hours. So what happened? Well, the project that is associated with Donald Trump and has a market cap of around $3 billion just made an announcement. They're saying that a fund, which name is Apex Group. I didn't know at all this company, this fund. I don't even know what they are, but they just announced that they're going to start using USD1, or they're going to pilot the use of USD1 for payment and related operation. Apex Group claims to manage 3.5 trillion in assets, so it's really huge. Now, be careful here. It's self-declared, it's self-reported. You can find the name Apex Group, but yeah, you can look for it yourself on the internet, but I didn't find a lot of information about them over the internet, so be careful. I wouldn't be surprised if later on we discover that there was some form of market manipulation associated with this. In any cases, the token pumped 18% following that announcement. And yeah, that's what drove the WLFI token to higher over the last few days. Now, I'll talk about Coinbase in a second, but before that, I saw something that really caught my attention because it sits right at the intersection of AI, crypto, and security, three topics that I'm personally very passionate about. There was a partnership between OpenAI and Paradigm, which is a major crypto investment. Together, they launched the benchmark, a set of tools called EVM Bench. The goal is to test artificial intelligence model against cybersecurity risks in smart contracts. In other words, they're evaluating how robust smart contracts are when facing AI system. The benchmark is designed to measure how effective AI is at finding vulnerabilities in smart contracts, fixing them, and even exploiting them. There's a 32-page research paper on the subject. They tested three different modes: the ability of AI to detect security vulnerability in smart contracts, the ability of AI to patch or fix those vulnerabilities, and the ability of AI to actually exploit vulnerabilities in near real condition, meaning the smart contract is deployed, connected to the AI is connected to a private key, and the AI can try to find and exploit the weaknesses. What came out of this study is that the best performing models for this kind of tasks are GPT 5.3 Codex and Claude Opus 4.6, and that confirms something I've been saying. I personally really like Claude Opus. If you look at the results, both Claude Opus 4.6 and GPT 5.3 are above 40% when it comes to vulnerability detection. Over 40% detection rate for smart contracts flow. That's actually huge. A few years ago, even just 1 or 2 years ago, I tested AI models myself on smart contracts, and they really weren't ready. They would find minor issues, sometimes irrelevant things, but overall, it just wasn't very impressive. You can see that if you look at the results for GPT-03, the old model now, for example, it's around 10% detection. Meanwhile, Opus 4.6 is above 40%. That's a massive difference. For the patching mode, the results are similar. GPT 5.3 performs strongly, but when it comes to exploitation, AI becomes particularly powerful. Why? Because AI can test, retest, adjust its approach, and iterate over and over until it finds a working exploit. That's why in some cases they even reached up to 80% success. Although we have to be careful because the models were given certain hints and guidance. For me, the most interesting part is the detection capability. That's the real turning point. And from there, of course, things can improve even further. I'm convinced we could reach much higher levels in the near future. And that's where the risk lies, because if AI becomes extremely good at detecting vulnerability in smart contracts, it can just as easily be used to exploit them, and hackers can use them to exploit the smart contracts. So that's something the entire crypto industry needs to take very seriously. And lately, I've been seeing a ton of stuff going around about crypto security because honestly, the whole crypto space is at risk with these AIs that can find vulnerabilities in pretty insane way. We've seen some very large hack recently, probably partly helped by AI. So yeah, it's worrying. But in a way, it's also reassuring, because if AI become extremely good at finding security flaws, then AIs also become extremely good at detecting them. And if developers have access to very powerful AIs upstream, early in the process of developing their smart contracts, that means we'll potentially end up shipping fewer and fewer vulnerabilities into production. AI is going to act like a huge filter at first. That doesn't mean we won't need audits, of course, but I genuinely think this is going to improve the security of smart contracts overall. The global level smart contract security will improve. There will always be a need for auditors to catch very complex things that AI still don't find, but I think 90% of all the vulnerabilities will be identified as early as possible in the development cycle. And that's basically the whole idea behind DevSecOps, or SecOps, in in the Web2 world. The idea is to shift left. You do security as early as possible in the development lifecycle, not like what we often do in Web3, where it's basically only at the very end, like, okay, now we do an audit to check everything is fine. Anyway, that's something I believe will happen, and that's what I wanted to say about this news. So yeah, next, let's talk about the Coinbase betrayal, because Coinbase launched its blockchain base some time ago now. It was August 2023, where they made the deal with Optimism. The chain was launched using Optimism technology, the OP stack, and it was part of the super chain, this constellation of blockchains built on the OP stack that are supposed to be interoperable. And Base also sends parts of its revenue to Optimism, and we can actually look at the original deal from 2023. Look, Base had committed to giving 2.5% of all revenue generated by the sequencer. The sequencer is the central component that generates money on the Base chain, or 50% of profits to Optimism, whichever one is larger. So that's significant. A meaningful portion of revenue and profit was supposed to be paid back to Optimism, and it has been paid back. And in return, Base was going to receive almost 3% of the OP token supply, 2.75% of the total Optimism token supply vested over 6 years. And now Coinbase just announced that Base is going to leave the OP stack, leave the super chain, so Base will no longer be built on this stack, and it will no longer be part of this constellation of blockchains. Base will remain an Ethereum L2, but it will be its own L2, built with its own code base. And they justified this by saying that it's about simplification. On Optimism, there are a lot of generic things, a lot of different components that they don't need. So they wanted to buy their own stack. The idea is to remove the unnecessary Optimism-related components and focus on what Base actually needs. But let's not kid ourselves. For me, it's basically Coinbase saying we don't want to keep paying a portion of our profits to Optimism. And on top of that, Base has become way bigger than Optimism. Base has become a chain almost leading L2 chain. They've overtaken Optimism. You can see it in TVL. Base is around $10 billion in TVL. Optimism is around $1.8 billion in TVL. Arbitrum is still ahead, but you can clearly see how massive Base has become compared to Optimism. They don't need Optimism anymore. And I told you this already, my concern, my fear is that at some point Base say, you know what, we don't even need Ethereum anymore. And they turn it into a full L1. They turn Base into a full L1. And some parts of the post they just published kind of suggest that direction, but yeah, just my interpretation. They say, don't worry, they're staying on Ethereum. They really want to remain on Ethereum L2. But they start talking about client diversity. They've started talking about a number of things that honestly sounds a lot like the kind of language you hear from L1s. So yeah, I don't know if it's actually possible for them to become an L1, because they will have to pay, they will have to have a token to distribute it to validators and stuff, and it might be more expensive, but yeah, we'll see. What's clear though is that it is a big hit for Optimism, which is down hard about 25% in the last 24 hours. The market cap is now only around $300 million. Even the TVL, the FDV. The FDV is around $600 million, which is really low. A few years ago, in 2024, we were at $4.4 billion in market cap. Now we're only at $300 million. So yeah. And Vitalik also, with his post a few weeks ago, kind of made Optimism futures looks even darker. He basically said that L2s that don't bring anything truly differentiating in any way are doomed to die. And the truth is, Optimism doesn't really bring much that's unique. Arbitrum, I've told you before, you can argue they bring things like a new programming languages and other innovation, but Optimism doesn't really have that. So right now it's genuinely complicated for Optimism. They tried also on the same day to push out a piece of positive news. Ether.fi, the restaking project, the staking project, well, they launched a crypto card a few months ago, I believe, their cash products, and it is doing really well. And now they just announced that this cash product, the crypto card, will move to the OP mainnet, so to Optimism. Previously, they were on Scroll. So it's another L2. So yeah, that's good news, but it absolutely does not make up for the base leaving. It's negligible. We're talking about 70,000 cards activated. Yes, it's nice. It's very good, but I've actually heard good things. I've actually heard only good things about the Ether.fi card, but clearly that's nowhere near enough to offset what they lost with base. Now, let's talk about the UAE, the United Arab Emirates. Look at this. A company linked to the UAE, the UAE Royal Group, reportedly had $453 million worth of Bitcoin that was mined. They mined this Bitcoin. They made almost more than $300 million in profits. And this adds to everything we've already seen, all these funds held by Gulf countries in crypto. It's huge. They're really continuing to accumulate cryptocurrencies and mainly BTC. And this is also that broader trend I've mentioned before, and that countries are going to race to accumulate BTC and crypto. So yeah, this is part of that. Now, some good news for Uniswap. There is a governance proposal underway to activate revenue sharing across a very large number of blockchains. You should know that Uniswap has activated the revenue share, the fee switch on Ethereum, but now they want to activate it on other chains, on 8 chains. We're talking about Arbitrum, Base, Celo, OP, Soneum, Xlayer, Warchain, and Zora. So that means extra revenue for Uni token stakers, and that's a good thing. Just to remind you, Uniswap is the largest decentralized exchange in the world. I'm talking about real historical spot dexes, not the perp dexes like Hyperliquid. They recently activated revenue sharing after many years of debate and uncertainty. And with the regulatory situation in the US and especially the change of administration, they were able to activate all of that. And it's a good thing to have it deployed and activated on as many chains as possible because it means more revenue for stakers. Now we will see if how the Uni token will be viewed by investors, because for now those revenues aren't that huge, but it's clearly a step forward. That's what I wanted to share with you today on the latest crypto news. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you tomorrow for the next one. Bye bye.